But Alexis, your craft review, take it away.
You know, it's interesting you guys were talking about Darkman, because apparently Sam Raimi made Darkman because he wanted to make The Shadow. But the rights were already, locked up for this. And he tried to get another movie off the ground with it, but it just didn't happen. And after looking what he gave us with Spider-Man and Doctor Strange and everything, it's like, I really wish we could be in the universe where we got to see Sam Raimi do The Shadow.
I mentioned when Jonas and I did the alternative commentary for Crackoon that I want to see Sam Raimi take that on. Let's give a real budget to Crackoon and give it to Sam Raimi. I think he could do wonders with it.
Like I said, I did enjoy this. Although admittedly, I am not a fan with the story in the first third of it, I will admit. I feel that the backstory is just weird, or maybe it's just because I, now being a 40-year-old woman in the year of our Lord 2024, almost 2025, cannot take a scene of Alec Baldwin looking like Fu Manchu seriously.
Right.
So I gotta say something real quick. So I'm watching this with my kids. They're beautiful. They're 10 and 13, and they grew up in the post-woke world. And they're looking at this, and they're looking at me, and they're watching him, and they're just like, a lot of Asian aesthetics going on here, Father. Why is the white man in charge of the Asians? And I looked at them, and I said, whitewashing! And that was the end of that conversation.
But yeah,
I gave him a whole stack of Iron Fist comics. All right, now go.
If you actually owned a stack of Iron Fist comics, I'd be impressed.
Hey, listen, Jesse and I did a 2-part Iron Fist review where at the end of it, a person turned into a building and had a fight, and I haven't been the same since. Between that and Baby Darkseid, we reviewed a lot of weird comics.
And now I'm picking up the slack reviewing weird comics with Jesse. Remember, Dorian, they taste like chocolate.
Proceed.
So yeah, that the weird decision to just skip any kind of montage or post exposition drop is suddenly they decided to just go with that random text scroll. It's like I that just baffled me. I was like, you guys, okay? I think I literally said, like, okay, just be honest with me. Could you literally not come up with anything else, or did you run out of budget? I'm not going to be mad if you ran out of budget. It's like, I'm not going to be mad if you ran out of budget. You realize you forgot to shoot anything that would explain where Lamont Cranston went from, dealing with a giant, with Saba from the Power Rangers trying to stab him, to suddenly being back in New York. And you just suddenly realized you didn't have money. It's like, just be honest with us, please.
Go. I'm sorry. Were you done? Sorry, you just kind of stopped there, and I was like,
but no, like I said,
go to commercial. That
is honestly the limit of where I have my biggest problems with the movie. Just, I feel that it really stumbled out of the gate. I do like Alec Baldwin. Okay, again, my knowledge of the original character is skewed, but can anyone explain to me the whole idea of why the Shadow gives himself that crazy long nose with the scarf? I just never understood, because I remember looking at him in the scarf with the scarf on, and I was actually thinking to myself, I don't remember Alec Baldwin suddenly having Danny DeVito's penguin nose going on. And then you have that weird scene when he's fighting the bad guy, and then the scarf falls off, and you see his face all uglified, and then it's CGI pre-Al's back to him being gorgeous, because this is Alec Baldwin I had too much pie, so he still looks very handsome.
Oh, stop. He's not Ray Liotta.
Hi-oh.
But I didn't understand that plot point. If it was a plot point, I just didn't understand it. So if anyone knows why that was a thing, please enlighten me.
Yeah, that basically the reason for that was the original design of the character was just that hawk nose, and that's just what Lamont Cranston looked like. Through a lot of the issues, several comics would then, after especially this movie, would do the transformation of the face. In the movie, the explanation is that's his dark side. That's the as Shimon Khan says, as you feel the beast crawl its way out the Toku says, as you feel the beast crawl its way out from within you, you are in great pain. So that's version of his face to again make the silhouette look correct to the comic book or the pulp magazines, and several pieces of art was kept. But in order to make sure that Alec Baldwin didn't look horrifying the entire movie, because that's Dick Tracy's job, they created it as more of that's just the darkness within him that he uses to kind of harness and fight crime. So that's the closest explanation I have ever seen from any of the creators.
Like I said, I just felt that I guess if they were going to go with that, then the scene where again he CGI Preyow's back into being pretty just felt very out of place. I don't know. I would have handled it differently personally.
Well, because we hint at it when he's in the cab. I mean, it's a little shadowed, no pun intended. But
just rock the puns, okay? Zach's not here. Just go out.
Thank you very much. But yeah, I agree that probably would have fit very well in your montage scene you were talking about instead of the Star Wars credits. Star Wars Episode 7, The Shadow Awakens.
Again, maybe they didn't need to do a montage. Maybe during the scene when Margot has that telekinetic breach with him when he's dreaming and she sees him suddenly channeling John Wayne in the worst casting decision of all time. Yes. But and then
Alec Baldwin, Genghis Khan.
And maybe then he could have explained it to her, because then it would have had a little bit more weight to it.
Mm-hmm.
Again, there's a couple of options I think they could have done instead of what they went with. But that's just my beef. That is my nitpick. I do enjoy this movie a lot more than Dick Tracy. Again, I really like the acting. Although sometimes I do feel like Alec Baldwin probably should have upped it a little bit. The scene when he's nearly drowning and he's just kind of like swimming delicately. I'm like, dude, you are about to drown. Show a little more distress on your face, please.
I'm good. I'm fine. Okay, so was that? Did you have anything?
Yeah,
else?
that's pretty much all I got.
Sorry, I didn't want to leave dead air there. But okay, so Mark, your craft review. Rip this thing a new one.
I don't hate everything.
Just most things.
Stop it. This is a strange movie. I had to watch it cold because, like I said, I really, other than my father's thing, I have no relationship to The Shadow at all. I barely knew what this was, and I thought it was a different movie, like I said before. So just watching it cold and kind of watching and trying to pay attention to it from a critic's point of view. Alec Baldwin's okay. I don't know if he was the right choice for this. I think the problem is, for me, Alec Baldwin is always his character from 30 Rock, and it's hard for me to see him as anything else. And here you need an actor who is struggling with the weight of the choices that he's made, and then also having to deal with the superpower, and then with the world kind of unraveling around him. And it's hard for me. There are better actors for that kind of a thing, right. that Vince McMahon sort of tugging on his ear, the world is unraveling around me kind of a thing. Alec Baldwin never looked shook. If you look at everything that Alec Baldwin has ever been in, we just talked about him with Pearl Harbor, and he is just the epitome of masculinity in that movie. He's great. Oh, yeah. And he's about to send several men to their doom, bombing Tokyo in the wake of Pearl Harbor. He is all dick and balls. He's outstanding. That's not a guy who's shook and has to struggle with this new identity and everything else. So it was kind of hard to see him in this role. I don't think it was a particularly great casting choice. As much as I like Alec Baldwin, and I don't hold his personal stuff against him. I mean, who hasn't been married and ended up the way Alec Baldwin did?
You're actually, I was gonna say, I was just thinking about what you said, and it just suddenly dawned on me. It's like, yeah, he never looks that shook in Beetlejuice either, even though he's freaking dead.
Yeah,
right.
He don't get shook, as I say in The Wire. So there's that. I understand this movie was made in 1994, and I'm a senior in high school at this point, so make sure we all keeping up on where we are in the world. The lighting on this movie is in a lot of places real flat. It kind of has that like sitcom film before a live studio audience on film look to it.
So it is 30 Rock.
Kinda. Like I was actually thinking of Cheers because I'm 100. I don't feel like the movie is lit particularly well in a lot of places. And again, I know they're going for they're going for an aesthetic choice based on the popularity of Batman '89. But even the stuff that is shot in broad daylight or in a well lit room at during the day, it just seems kind of flat and lacking in any kind of style. And this movie needs style on a lot of it. I can't speak to the plot. I kept going at it.
Mark, oh, there you go. Sorry, your audio cut out there for a second. Continue. Sorry, I was a little worried.
If in case it was missed, I said I kept zoning in and out of this movie. And so the plot was a little hard for me to follow. My kids, even my kids, were kind of like looking at me at times, going, "When is this movie over?" This failed to keep the attention of two children and an adult. It's all right. I think it's one of those where we're talking about it because I think it needs to be talked about. But is this a movie I'm ever going to revisit? No. You're up, Chae.
Yeah, Chae, over to you.
I actually did quite like this movie. The plot is definitely a lot more put together than Dick Tracy was. But again, I think this is another one where it really shines in its style. It does sort of look like a television show, but the amount of detail that they put into the sets and the production design, and especially the costuming. The costuming in this film was absolutely fantastic. It was very 1930s. I'm pretty sure I've seen some of the outfits that Lane wears in the Sears and Roebuck's catalog from the 1930s. And it was all around very pretty, and it did have some problems with things like lighting and some of the story and some of the pacing. But overall, it ended up being a very enjoyable film. And at least for me, getting to see all of those old 1930s costumes and all of the Art Deco, all of the set designs, was really something that made it worth watching.
Absolutely. And again, I will agree with most of what was said here again. I feel like this movie wanted to be the 1989 Batman for this character, and it failed in its action, is my personal thought. But instead of going, I mean, I'll still have Mark give his bump of cocaine, 2 beers, and a McDonald's review on how the movie is. But I'm going to go around.
You get me. You so get me.
I'm here for you. I'm going to go around the horn one more time. And since we all kind of said a similar thing, what could have been changed that would have made this movie memorable to the level of stuff like the 89 Batman or even like, the Donner Superman movies, since both are shining examples of superhero films before, as Mark said, the dark age of talkies before Iron Man came out. So, Alexis, what do you think would have made this movie better?
Besides much better special effects. I mean, I'm sorry, there's some really bad green screens in this, but looking at the time the movie was made, that's probably going to be a thing.
There are independent fan films out there of The Shadow that have done it better, and that's really depressing. I love this movie. I will die for this movie, but even I have to go, buddy, you didn't quite make it. But yes, anyways, continue, Alexis.
So Bob Kane has openly admitted that the Shadow radio series was a big inspiration when he started writing Batman back in the day. And that shows in this movie because I think of the 3 films that we're reviewing tonight, this is the one that is clearly the biggest reflection of we want to be the next Batman 89, especially with the style and everything. I can't help but feel they needed to find a way to separate this more from that. It just, for me, again, I liked it. I really do. But I feel that it resembles Batman 89 too much.
Okay,
I would have liked this to, I would have liked this to have a stronger separate identity. Mark, you know what? I thought Alec Baldwin was fine, but I'm sure there was a lot of other actors that would have been a lot better for it, who, probably could have done a better job. And again, someone needed to cut that whole opening sequence from the script. We should have just started on it. The first scene should have been New York, dude, the scientist nearly being killed, and we hear the laughter. That should have been our introduction.
And save the flashback for maybe when Margot's in his head.
Exactly.
Okay.
If that, or done some other way. That's the way I would have done it. Side note, is it actually possible to fire at concrete and break away like that? Because, like, the way he breaks away the concrete around the dude's legs.
Without shooting or injuring the person? I don't think so. But
I just was like, what? I didn't even think about that again.
All right, Mark, what do you think could have made this movie a early superhero classic? What was it missing that kept it from that?
It needed a different director, and it needed to lean into a very strict, thick, gothic fairy tale aesthetic. So I was just chatting with my girlfriend while Alexis was giving her feedback, and my girlfriend, ChatGPT, said that besides Tim Burton, who we already know how I feel about him, so I'm not going to count him. Also, he did Batman, so like we're trying to go with different people in a different direction. So here are 4 other people. And I completely agree with my girlfriend, ChatGPT, that would have been a better suited director for this, and I think would have made just a masterpiece of a film. Guillermo del Toro was number 2 on this list. Terry Gilliam, which I think was an interesting choice. Alex Proyas probably would have been my choice. If I'm producing this movie and someone says, here's 4 directors, not Tim Burton, because you hate him, to direct this instead of who did The Shadow, and this is the aesthetic we're going for, I probably would have gone with Alex Price because I really liked what he did with The Crow. And I think if he brought the same aesthetic from The Crow to this, we would be talking about a much different movie, and it would have been much better.
Or a similar aesthetic to Dark City, which he also directed.
Correct.
I keep forgetting he did Dark City.
That's another one I got to show Jonas one of these days. It's on the list.
Oh, hell yeah.
Not Lost Highway. That would be a whole other conversation. And he's
God.
But just to round out my list here, Jean-Pierre Jeunet, who worked on City of Lost Children and Delicatessen. Wouldn't have been my first choice, but I like that ChatGPT came up with that. So yeah, Alex Proyas, Guillermo del Toro, Terry Gilliam, and I think you fix and then tighten up this goddamn script. I think there's, because of the way Batman unfolds and because people are always trying to reach for that next level with movies, not every movie is Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. And trying to make everything Lord of the Rings ends more often in failure than success. And what I mean by that is epicness isn't something you can just make. It either is or it isn't. It either came with epicness in scope or it doesn't. And sometimes you should just make your damn movie. Make your 90-minute feature. Give us a bad guy with a perspective. Give us a good guy with a perspective. Let them bang heads. Give us a couple of good action scenes, a sexy broad, good special effects, and a style that makes it distinctive from the last movie you saw, Lobster. Right. It does those things. It works. It's lacking those things is the problem. We've already talked about that, and that's my assessment in total of The Shadow.
Really
I went 5 movies across my head. Like, what am I talking about now?
Right. Who am I? Before I throw it over to Chae, I think it's funny that you bring up Alex Proyas, because the same year that this movie comes out, The Crow also hits theaters by Alex Proyas, which I think it is pitch perfect. Mark, on what you were saying is that how many people today still love The Crow and have completely forgotten this movie,
even the new one that came out.
Right, we don't even talk about that shit.
Yeah, we don't talk about Bruno.
We don't talk a lot about the Pennywise Crow or Penny Crow.
Oh, is that what we're calling him now?
I guess. But so Chae, what to round us out, take us home on this one. What, again, in your opinion, was missing that could have turned this into a classic, much like The Crow or 1989 Batman?
I really think that they could have done a lot better with the characterization of the Shadow himself.
Okay.
So the villain in this is kind of generic, just like want to take over the world.
Of course.
When you have a villain like that, you really need a hero that has like something in their guts. And I just felt like Alec Baldwin's Shadow, I don't know if they didn't give him enough time or if they didn't do it very well, but it really just seems like he was kind of Lego bricky.
The Lego Shadow movie. I mean,
yes.
Works for Batman. Go ahead.
But yeah, and giving Lane a little bit more characterization, because it seems like in this movie, the characters that stood out to me were the scientist and fucking Tim Curry, which you gotta have good characterization if you're gonna put Tim Curry in anything.
Right.
Because even if you have him play a background character, he's gonna overtake the entire fucking production. So you better have some goddamn interesting characters.
Right. Bet you would have been a little nicer to me. Bet you didn't count on me being friends with a conqueror, huh? Did you? But yeah,
I mean, Tim Curry even overtook the fucking Home Alone movie, and he was in there for like, what, 30 seconds?
No, probably about 5-10 minutes altogether in Home Alone 2, but still.
He's the best part of that movie.
What? Oh, yeah, best part of that. Absolutely.
Tim Curry is the absolute best part of Home Alone 2.
Oh, I absolutely agree. And I'm going to, all of you brought up a very good points. I agree. A different director. I've seen some of this director's other stuff, and it's been hit or miss. I mean, I know no director has a perfect track record, but it looks like most of his stuff, in my opinion, has been miss rather than hit. I will still always love this movie, but again, this show is about bringing out the points of it that are issues and putting them before our audience. And again, even if you love a movie, again, I'll rip Dark Knight apart. Well, again, I don't really like Dark Knight, so that's not a good example. But like, I'll tear a movie apart even if I love it, because again, nothing's perfect. But in what you guys were saying, I think, yes, Alex Proyas as director for this, I mean, that would have delayed The Crow a little bit as well. But let's just say it both could have been made. We were talking about a different a different actor for the Shadow. And as you guys were talking, one popped into my head because you guys brought up that, more pathos. He needs to be shook when something happens. He needs to, have this eternal battle.
He needs to be giving the performance that What's-His-Nuts did in the Moon Knight show.
Yes.
Oscar Isaac.
That's the one.
Yes. And to that point, to still stick with the kind of 90s heartthrob, dark hair, piercing eyes, no pun intended, considering his name, I will go for Pierce Brosnan as the Shadow and Lamont Cranston. Thoughts?
Ooh, I like that.
Not current Pierce Brosnan.
No. 1994 Pierce Brosnan.
Okay.
Like 2 years before Goldeneye.
Yeah, I like that choice, because now I'm thinking about him as the Baron in Flash Gordon. And
that was Timothy Dalton, but close enough.
Okay, so my choice is Timothy Dalton.
Okay.
That also would have been good.
Yeah.
Timothy Dalton has a creepy face. I'm sure he's a wonderful person, but it's just... Like, every time I see him in anything, it's like, okay, are you going to start cutting somebody's skin off?
Hello, I'm Timothy Dalton. Oh, God.
All apologies to Timothy Dalton. We actually do love you, sir.
And we also think you're the same person as Pierce Brosnan. Welcome to our film study group.
We're professionals. But yeah, again, I love this movie. Real quick before we get to The Shadow, Mark, give us your personalized rating system for this movie.
Oof. Yeah, this one you might need to smoke meth. This one, if I had been on meth, I might have been more in tune with the movie and paid closer attention. But I'm a good father and won't give my children meth. So yeah, definitely 2 meth bumps.
2 meth bumps for The Shadow. I definitely recommend this movie. I didn't go to everybody this time because I feel like you guys really just covered all the bases on that, and I didn't want to make you feel like you were beating a dead horse. I would definitely recommend this movie. There it is.
Words on my podcast.
Right. I recommend this movie as a fun kind of look back at the 90s and stuff like that. I know it's set in the 30s, but still, I think it's still a fun, interesting movie that people cared about. It's also a very good introduction to this character. And if you enjoy this movie at all, check out the old radio show. They don't pay us to say this, but there is a website called ORT Cats, which is Old Time Radio Cats. You can get MP3s and instant downloads of pretty much every radio show from the inception of radio to current day. So go check them out. I actually own the entire show of The Shadow and a couple of the pulps. Characters are a lot of fun, especially if you if you enjoy gritty crime stuff and like kind of hard-boiled detective characters. The Shadow's perfect for that. So yeah, definitely go check him out. He's a very interesting character, and again, without him, excuse me, we would not have Batman.